Hello, everyone. I will wait 1 minute and then I will start. Let more people join us.
Dr. Parisa.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our distinguished guests, eminent speakers, and participants from all over the world. Thank you so much indeed for your participation and welcome to Urban Lab 2. Before we start, I would like to also use this chance to welcome our speakers and thank them for accepting our invitation. It is our great honor to have you all on board and learn from you. My name is Parisa Kloss, Executive Director of Resilient Urban Planning and Development Company based in Germany, and I'm going to moderate this lab. We already discussed in previous lab what kinds of challenges exist and learned from Kuala Lumpur and Mannheim city. In this lab, we are going to showcase the climate impact adaptation in Kuala Lumpur and Mannheim. This is great to hear that both cities are keeping the track of progress and constantly moving their cities toward implementing the climate action plans, as well as SDGs. We already heard from Dato Mati Chenang, the Honorable Mayor of Kuala Lumpur, that KL already developed a climate action plan and is going to be implemented. As well as we heard from Honorable Mayor of Mannheim City, Dr. Peter Kors, about the local green deal of Mannheim and all their initiatives in Mannheim. So in this lab, good practices from both cities will be discussed to learn from each other and identify the existing barriers and the ways to overcome them. We have interesting initiatives that we would like to share with you. That's why I don't want to keep you waiting that much and give a floor to our speakers and moving straight to our discussion. This session will be 1 hour and 45 minutes. We have 2 keynote speakers and each has 10 minutes to present, as well as 4 speakers and each has 15 minutes. A kind reminder to our speakers, please keep your presentation short and showcase your project in the determined time frame. We would love to hear more about your valuable project experience and knowledge, and we may discuss it further in Q&A session. To save time, if any of you have any questions, please write them in the chat box, and at the end of the session, we will answer your questions. Okay, I will start with our eminent keynote speaker. We're honored to have Professor Diana Pretzell, Deputy Mayor of Mannheim City. Briefly introducing Professor Pretzell. She is a mayor for citizens, services, climate, environment, technical operation, and she has many key roles in implementing environmental projects to protect biodiversity in Germany and Europe. Professor Pretzell, the floor is yours, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, and a warm welcome from Mannheim to all of you. It's great that we have the opportunity to share what we do at the moment, because it's a worldwide move we have to do very urgent now, and at least we try to do our best here in Mannheim. By profession, I'm a qualified forester and journalist, and I worked for WWF Germany. There I was the head of Nature Conservation Germany, and finally at the end, the director of biodiversity policies. Now, a little bit more than a year, I'm the deputy mayor of the city of Mannheim from the Green Party. So I would always say I'm the Green mayor here. And therefore, of course, climate neutrality is my topic, and we try to do our best to reach the target by 2030 for climate neutrality, or at least almost. And therefore, we do a lot of things. Professor Dr. Kurz already told you about the Green Deal movement we do here in Mannheim as a city. And also, of course, we focus on the climate action plan and on the 100 climate neutral cities. Already in 2019, we started with a huge transformation here, because we then looked for our goals and focused them on the Sustainable Development Goals. With this point, the climate neutrality was one of our most important strategic goals here in the city. And this movement was very important for all the coming things we did now. The goal is framed: Mannheim is a climate-friendly, climate-resilient, and in the long term, climate-neutral city. That is a role model for environmental conscious action. So you see, we want to be a role model for all what we do here, and also for all of you, if also we of course can learn a lot from you. And the benchmark for all city projects is climate neutrality due to this goal. And that is, I think, very unique as far as I know. And we check all goals against this climate goal, all projects against this climate goal. And on the other hand, we have the situation that we are one of the hottest big cities in Germany, at least the hottest. We have the most tropical nights in Mannheim all over Germany. So climate change is really here, yeah, for the citizens. We have heavy rain, we have extreme weathers, we have heavy storms, and also water of the rivers coming up to the city. And so the people see what's going on. And still we are in a process adapting to these consequences. And therefore Mannheim joined the climate emergency movement. And also we did an urgent action plan to climate neutrality in the year 2019. And in 2020, we did another move because we saw that the Green Deal would help us a lot, the European Green Deal. I think most of you have heard of that already. invited other European cities to a conference of sustainable cities and towns in 2020, together with IFLA, to think about how we could really fill this movement of the Green Deal. And therefore, I would like you, some of the organizers has something to show, some pictures for me. Could you please give this, or shall I show it to you? I think I have to, so I will. Because I wanted to show you shortly how it works together. You see here, we work on the Climate Action Plan, which is in the middle. And as I told you, we are the first pilot city that really has an office for the Green Deal itself. And the speakers person, Agnes Schoenfelder, will also tell you about her moves, her projects, her way of working in our city within this urban thinkers part here. Yeah, we are at the moment drawing the Climate Action Plan by 2030. And for a city, of course, this is a huge process, because we can't fulfill all our targets and goals alone. We need all the city players, the stakeholders in the city for that. And therefore, we had a lot of participation in our city, in different groups, by energy consumption in buildings, by clean energy supply, by mobility, by commerce, by trade, by service and industry, by blue and green infrastructure, and by private households. All of them thought about possibilities, activities to get climate neutral. And of course, they all have different ideas of getting there and different problems with that. So if you do this in a city, it's of course a big movement, and it's really a game changer if you manage to get all these groups together working for climate neutrality. And that's just our goal at the moment. So this process will be also a part of this process is that we try at the moment to be part of the European mission for the 100 climate neutral cities. We participated in an assessment there for Climate Ambition 2030. And in March, the European Union will decide whether we will be part of this movement. That would help us a lot, because if we are a pilot city, we could also fulfill our action plan, climate action plan projects a lot better, because we would get help from the European Union for this process. Nevertheless, the local Green Deal is even more than that. The local Green Deal also looks at things like biodiversity, like farming, and a lot more things in a lot more detail. And also it tries to do deals with the groups here in the city to move them into direction of Green Deal. That's the way we do it at the moment. That's our case study for you, and you will learn even more about that by Agnes Schoenfelder. And I now hope you have a very good session this morning about all these different ways of getting climate neutral these next years. And I hope we can learn a lot from each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this impressive achievement of Mannheim City. This is really good to hear that you're constantly progressing and trying to make the city carbon neutral. Thank you so much. I would like to move to our next speaker. Our next eminent keynote speaker is Dr. Sugumari Shanmugam. Under Secretary of Climate Change Division, Ministry of Environment and Water in Malaysia. She has 25 years of practical experience in government services, works with leaders to transform strategy into reality, and she has many positions related to international trade and development, as well as human resource management in the public services, and currently heading the climate change and green technology division. Dr. Sugumari, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Doctor. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Ministry of Environment and Water, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting the Ministry to deliver a keynote address at the Urban Lab 2, showcasing the climate impact adaptation in Malaysia and Germany and the local Green Deal of Mannheim. This topic is important and is timely organized, taking into account the outcomes of the UNFCCC COP26 in Glasgow, where parties agreed on enhancing work program and support on climate change adaptation. In terms of climate ambition, Malaysia had communicated its updated NDC in 2021 with a pledge to reduce economic-wide carbon intensity against GDP of 45% in 2030 compared to 2005 level. And the updated NDC target is more ambitious since the target is unconditional and 10% increase compared with the earlier submission. In addition, Malaysia's NDC now covers 7 types of GHGs instead of just 3 GHGs previously. On the other hand, Malaysia also announced its long-term aspiration to achieve net zero GHG target by 2050, as early as 2050, pending the completion of the long-term low emission development strategy by 2022. In order to achieve these ambitious commitment and aspirational targets, Malaysia will be putting forward several policy measures, among others, implementation of carbon pricing policy in phases to support national efforts to reduce GHG emissions. This includes the development and operationalization of domestic emission trading scheme by 2022, aspiration for 100% of government fleets to be non-internal combustion engine vehicles by 2030, to maintain at least 50% of forest cover as pledged during the Rio Summit, Earth Summit 1992, and to transform cities in Malaysia towards low carbon pathway through systematic approaches outlined under the National Low Carbon City Master Plan. As a nation, Malaysia is serious about delivering game-changing initiatives in the National Development Plan to ensure the objectives of prosperity, inclusivity, and sustainability is met. The Right Honourable Prime Minister has announced Malaysia's latest development plan, the 12th Malaysian Plan last year, which offers several key game-changing initiatives to support low-carbon pathway and climate-resilient development. Under Theme 3, Advancing Sustainability of the 12th Malaysian Plan, Malaysia will focus on green growth as well as enhancing energy sustainability and transforming the water sector. I believe addressing water-related climate change impacts and disaster risks is a global concern. The Malaysian government is now planning a comprehensive water transformation agenda where we set out to increase Malaysia's resilience against climate change and addressing disaster risks. The recent catastrophic flood that hit the country in December 2021 has impacted the economy and the livelihood of our people in 8 states. And this impact is estimated to be RM 6.5 billion in economic losses, and at least 125,000 people were displaced and 54 lives lost. Sorry, I have a request to show my face. And recorded as one of the deadliest natural catastrophes in Malaysia since 1971. And the latest climate projection for Malaysia indicated that the average annual surface temperature increase ranges from 1.9 to 2.1 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. And the magnitude of change of the average annual precipitation in Malaysia is also expected to increase from 14% to 25%. And the sea level is projected to continue rising to about 0.73 meter by the end of 21st century. So to address all these issues, Malaysia has allocated RM 7.24 billion to enhance climate resilience and adaptation measures in the 11th Malaysian Plan. Latest findings from the IPCC have indicated that the intensity and magnitude of climate-related disasters and slow onsets will be increased in the future for Southeast Asian regions. And this provides an important signal to policymakers like us that continuous efforts to enhance climate resilience and adaptation measures are needed in the 12th Malaysian Plan and future national development plans. In this regard, Malaysia will put in place a strategic way forward to enhance climate change adaptation and also to begin strategizing measures to address loss and damage especially for vulnerable sectors and communities. So it's important to note that we have also managed to reduce the damage to Klang Valley because of long-term strategies and innovative solutions that are already in place. During the recent flood, the smart tunnel managed up to 5 million cubic meters of stormwater at the highest mode for 21 hours. The medium-term measures to respond flood will include ensuring the preparedness of our assets through consistent maintenance, improving the current infrastructure and the early warning system, and increasing research and incorporating climate change factor into our flood protection design. The application of technology has already been applied through development of early warning communications, and climate modeling for weather forecast and climate projection will be improved. Distinguished guests, strengthening governance is key in long-term adaptation planning. Malaysia is now developing its National Adaptation Plan to ensure that climate change adaptation is mainstreamed into its National Development Plan, and also studying the legal framework structure for water sector adaptation. Some adaptation initiatives utilize both structural and non-structural nature-based measures for coastal protection, flood mitigation, and stormwater management. Enhancing conservation and protecting the natural ecosystems also contribute towards building resilience to climate change. So this approach supports the long-term adaptation plan and reduces disaster risk. We are looking into the establishment of the National Adaptation Center to manage and monitor the NAP once it's developed. We are also planning to develop a national policy that integrates both climate change adaptation and disaster risk management. Such an integrated and holistic approach is important for Malaysia to overcome existing institutional and jurisdictional barriers, since climate change does not respect physical, geopolitical, or institutional boundaries. We also welcome the UNFCCC COP26 Glasgow decisions on scaling up action and support, and the launch of Glasgow Sharm el-Sheikh work program on the global goal on adaptation. We need to adopt a stepwise approach in enhancing food security, developing climate resilient infrastructure, strengthening public health resilience, and increasing forestry and biodiversity adaptive capacity. For this purpose, we need means of implementation such as technical capacity, technology transfer, and financial support to scale up actions. Malaysia also plans to develop a NAP that inculcates risk-informed and science-based policy whilst being inclusive by incorporating gender, youth, and indigenous community, which is in line with the United Nations SDG, leaving no one behind. Adaptation actions have been ramped up since the establishment of the ministry in 2020, where Malaysia managed to secure funds from the Adaptation Fund for the national-based climate adaptation program for the urban areas of Penang Island. We are also working closely with the Iskandar Regional Development Agency to access technical assistance for the Climate Technology and Center Network to develop a multi-hazard platform for forecasting local level climate extremes and physical hazards for Iskandar, Malaysia. This platform is taking lessons from Kuala Lumpur multi-hazard platform developed under the Newton Unku Umrah Fund. CASA would like to encourage more implementation for non-structural measures like this for a holistic long-term adaptation planning. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that our aspiration to be progressive in our climate change commitments and to address the impacts of climate change would require enhanced means of implementation support. So we welcome any means of support, and especially by developed countries, in providing climate finance, technology transfer, and capacity building to support countries like Malaysia to meet our climate ambitions and to address the impact of climate change in our country. With this, I would like to thank the organizers once again for inviting the Ministry of Environment and Water to this conference, and congratulations to the organizers for hosting this conference, and looking forward for a fruitful discussion, exchange of ideas between experts from Malaysia and Germany. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your impressive talk, and it's really good to see that Malaysia already in reach with lots of plans. There is a short, medium, long-term plans for taking care of climate change. This is really good, and I congratulate Malaysia for this big achievement. So I would like to move to our speakers. Our first speaker in this lab is Professor Ho-Chin Siong, Director of Low Carbon Asia at Faculty of Built Environment, University of Technology Malaysia. And you will probably share with us the Low Carbon Society blueprint for Kuala Lumpur, if I have not mistaken. And Professor Siong, the floor is yours, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. Very good afternoon to my Malaysian friends, and of course a very good morning to our European partners. Thank you for the invitation for me to join this session. And the title of my presentation is basically Implementation of Low Carbon Society Blueprint in Kuala Lumpur, which my center is directly involved in the preparation. And I'll try to relate to this climate impact adaptation. First, if you look at the first slide, you can see that actually Kuala Lumpur shows a high commitment towards climate change. Although Kuala Lumpur is considered 50 years old now, they just celebrated 50-year anniversary. But in terms of climate change, I must say it's relatively new. Because if you look at the Climate Action Plan, or KLCAP, is only prepared last year. And of course, I think it's too early for us to see the result of the implementation. But prior to this CAP CAP 2050, there is a plan, we call it Low Carbon Society Blueprint, that was prepared in 2017. So in between that, the plan was launched in Katowice, in COP in Poland in 2018, where I think where the mayor actually made a commitment that actually they are going ready for this low carbon and hopefully towards carbon neutral later. So that's why I think the 2050 plan incorporated the carbon neutral plan. And of course, as we go along, it does incorporate SDG and joining this so-called C40 climate action planning program, as well as GCOM. This slide shows basically that we can see that Kuala Lumpur will play a very important crucial leadership role. Just now, I think Dr. Sugumari had mentioned that the Malaysian government is taking very serious steps, and Kuala Lumpur is trying to play the leading role for best practices for showcase to all other local authorities in Malaysia, as well as even to a certain extent Asian region. Kuala Lumpur declared to be a carbon neutral city 2050 in this COP26 in Glasgow. So there are three important plans you can see that was mentioned actually just on my mayor as well. Kuala Lumpur Low Carbon Society Blueprint, and then the Climate Action Plan 2050. And of course, in between there's a KL Structure Plan, this is the Statutory Plan. All these three plans actually outline a very strong, what do you call it, target, whereby 70% reduction by 2030, 85% by 2040, and carbon neutral by 2050. So that is the thing. So let me maybe briefly go one by one on these three documents. The first one is KL Low Carbon Society Blueprint. As mentioned just now, 70% reduction on density by 2030. And in this plan, actually, this is the first time we use a very quantitative methods, measuring the carbon emission by using modeling to project it from 2010 to 2030. And then we also identify the roadmap, how to decarbonize this so-called GHG emission. And altogether, there are about 245 programs which have been identified there. The second, actually, most important plan is KL Climate Action Plan. I think this is a very comprehensive plan, very recently launched. It covers two, mitigation and adaptation, whereas the earlier one was mainly on mitigation. And this is basically geared towards trying to achieve the objective of Paris Agreement. So here, actually, this is an expansion of our kind of blueprint 2030, so that we have a clear roadmap to ensure KL achieve both climate neutrality and climate resilience by the year 2050. This plan, these two plans, I call it a statutory plan. Statutory meaning to say that it is prepared under the Planning Act 267, where these two plans comprise of Kuala Lumpur Structure Plan and Local Plan, which is yet to be gazette or approved. And actually, these two plans are very important because it set Kuala Lumpur spatial planning and development control towards this more low carbon, sustainable, resilient future. We are looking into possibilities of mainstreaming the both Climate Action Plan and Low Carbon Society Blueprint into these two statutory plans. And here, if you look at it, actually, this CAP also map out the relationship between the three plans. First one between climate action plan and low carbon society blueprint. The two particular action that related to adaptation that's related to our discussion today is basically the action on green and blue network, as well as sustainable water and wastewater management. And this actually cover basically the biodiversity, the park planning, and a low impact development concept and greening. Greening, I think just now a lot of discussion was on the heat stress and heat island effect. So these are things that have been mentioned. In terms of the relationship between that plan or climate action plan with structure plan, there are three main items highlighted here. Is the plan is in line with healthy and vibrant city, climate smart city, and of course integrated sustainable development. So actually, if you look at the overall planning, we have quite a clear message that I would like to sum up 4 points here. One is actually KL low carbon society blueprint is one of the pioneer plan trying to guide decarbonization for KL. So it's a very good start. And this is the first time we try to quantify so that we can manage carbon. Secondly, this KL Climate Action Plan 2050 came in, it complemented the 2050 and expanded to include mitigation and adaptation measures. So we still have yet to see the result due to the implementation. And the third point, which I highlighted just now, is the mainstreaming of this climate action plan into the statutory plan, because the two plans are to be gazetted soon. And it's very important that we can make use of that two plan for decarbonization, disaster risk reduction, and climate change adaptation. So this would able to give us a good foundation for long-term and forward planning to reduce risk and reduce exposure to natural hazard. So actually, from our side, we certainly feel that this webinar or workshop will provide opportunity for that knowledge sharing. As I can see, Mannheim have a lot of good practices, and there will be a good opportunity for the city-city collaboration. And I hope that we would able to identify more planning concept or bylaws or regulations where we can incorporate some of the good ideas from developed countries or cities like Mannheim. Let me quickly just go through with you the low carbon society blueprint. It was prepared in 2018, some time ago. So first, we are very concerned that KL is a national capital, and it's important that it must to maintain to become a world-class metropolis, and it must take into consideration of business infrastructure and livable environment. So we are also concerned that it must also achieve the national carbon emission intensity reduction target. And I think this I will skip it because I think Dr. Sugumari had mentioned about this so-called Paris Agreement, and the 70% reduction is a target set by the city, which is very ambitious, and we also integrate quite a number of plans during that time to make sure that Kuala Lumpur could achieve that kind of target. And this is done through modeling. And as I mentioned that this is the first time we use a baseline of 2010, do a projection of BAU for 2020 and 2030. And these are so-called some of the summary that I tried to sum up. And of course, I think the important part here is that we need to consider science to action using emission reduction by sector. Here there are three sectors: economy sector, social sector, and environmental sector. So, and then we also can understand how the emission reduction by particular sector and how the mayor could give emphasis. For instance, we know that actually energy system are very important, building and transportation as well as community action. So these are some of the modeling results that we have here. And of course, for any plan, we need a roadmap. And roadmap here, we have identified what to do, when to do it, and who are the parties to take action. And from what I mentioned just now, the way forward here actually is very much on mainstreaming and incorporating the national plan, which I think Dr. Sugumari have mentioned out some of the important initiative. First, I mentioned that the blueprint is a pioneer plan, it's a decarbonization plan. Secondly, we know that actually many of these low carbon measures have been implemented and monitored by DBKL, and it's an ongoing process. So we are helping them to do a capacity building from time to time. And we also think that the third point is that we need more stakeholder buy-in and capacity building to implement the next plan. That is the KL Climate Action Plan. I think we still need a lot of understanding, better understanding in terms of mitigation and adaptation measures. And the fourth point is that we need to integrate a long-term plan, which I think the federal government has very recently declared that in the 12 Malaysian Plan, we are talking about carbon neutrality, and they are working on a long-term low emission strategy, water sector transformation, and national adaptation plan, which is in the pipeline. As for the 12 Malaysian Plan, this is the image that we have. The government just very recently declared to be a carbon neutral nation, and Kuala Lumpur as the city, a capital city, should respond to it, and should be working towards that 3 priority area: low carbon, clean and resilient development, managing natural resources, which actually KL have that, and thirdly, also, of course, to provide the enabling environment in terms of governance, which is equally important. Like all studies, I think good climate information inventory are very important. This is, I think, CAP have done a good job. They have quite a number of information like temperature related to public health, rainfall, or precipitation. All this information, I think it should be made available, or they should start having the kind of data bank so that we can make better and more scientific direction. And the other thing is, of course, the adaptation goal setting, which mentioned strongly in CAP 2050. We are talking about heat wave, we are talking about flooding, we are talking about drought. So these are the 3 things which is will become very serious by 2050. KL need to address to it. We need an action plan. I think this morning, maybe the mayor have also shown that things to do by 2025, by 2030, and then by 2050. So these are things that we hope to do to achieve our carbon neutrality as well as resilient. I'll end my presentation with 5 points here. One is actually, I must say that DBKL have sufficient document now to guide decarbonization and resilient planning. Now the focus should be very much more on implementation. I think it's timely for knowledge sharing and opportunity for city-to-city collaboration. And second point is that science to action are important. You have to be evidence-based. A country like Malaysia or a city like KL should have good inventory and climate change data in single platform where we can understand better, and we should also have more weather station, establishment of weather prediction for better proactive planning. The third point I'd like to highlight is that low carbon strategy blueprint have implemented for the last 3 years. So there are some barriers which identify or challenges that we are still going through. During my workshop or capacity building with them, is that there's still a lot of knowledge learning, is still on the learning curve. Technology availability and funding. I think funding is another important issues for most developing countries. Apart from this technology and technological capacity, we're also talking about integration of plan making, implementation, and development control. I think the mayor this morning also mentioned strongly that how can we incorporate some of the development control measures from the developed country, where we can try to see how can that be used in Kuala Lumpur. And thirdly, of course, the integration of KL structure plan and local plan into development control, disaster risk management, climate change adaptation, to be a long foundation for long-term and forward risk-taking reduction. So I think with that, I'll end my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was on time. Thank you. We will, I'm going to the next speaker, and then later on we are discuss further in Q&A session. Thank you so much. I would like to invite next speaker, Ms. Agnes Schoenfelder, Climate Protection Policy Officer, as well as spokesperson of Local Green Deal Mannheim. Ms. Schoenfelder, the floor is yours, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, good morning in Germany, good afternoon in Malaysia. Hello. Yes, I have 3 functions, so that makes it really concrete what a local Green Deal is. I'm not only the climate policy officer for the Deputy Mayor Diana Pretzell, which you have heard this morning, and I'm also the spokesperson for the new local Green Deal Mannheim, and I am the CEO of our Climate Action Agency. So I bring in person the mission to action, and I hope I can explain how we do it with a local Green Deal. So I open my presentation. This. So now it should work. So I hope you can see the presentation now in a full screen. Perfectly. Thank you very much. So the story of the local Green Deal starts with the Mannheim message, because the Mannheim message we announced during our 9th Sustainable European Conference on Sustainable Cities and Towns, together with the Worldwide Network for Sustainable Cities, IFLA. And so it brings the local, the EU Green Deal, European Green Deal, to the local level, because it's very clear to be the first climate neutral continent as Europe wants to be in 2050. It cannot go without the cities, because the cities have the challenge, the cities have the solutions, and the cities have to do the action, but they cannot do it alone. So Mannheim decided to be a front runner and to be a pilot city for localizing the European Green Deal on a local level. So the so-called local Green Deals. And so we found a term that makes it really clear what a local Green Deal is. It is ideal for Mannheim. So we want to create, by a local Green Deal, an ideal city with our citizens, with all stakeholders, and an ideal city is a green, is a healthy, is a sustainable, is a climate neutral city that leaves no one behind. So it connects our sustainability goals with our climate goals. And it makes it very clear it goes only with action. It is not another plan, not another strategy. It brings our strategies, our plans into action. So that is ideal for Mannheim, and ideal is also ideal. So I in person, I as a stakeholder, I as a citizen, I as a company, deal that Mannheim wants, can come to become a really ideal city. And so we are a front runner for the local Green Deal, together with the 100 Intelligent Cities Challenge by the EU Commission. We wrote the blueprint for a local Green Deal, blueprint for action. And so a local Green Deal lives from the logical point that you need a really good governance, and a governance that overcomes the silo thinking. It's an integrating approach through all the departments and with the citizens, the stakeholders, and the companies in the city. So to define integrated goals, not sectory goals, but integrated goals to bring the overall picture together. And that goes along with partnerships with other cities, with other governments, at the local level, at the regional level, at the national level, European level, international level. it goes along with partnerships with the companies, with the private sector, with the citizens, and so on. And it lives from action. So the action, the deals. And that goes only with local action, with local stakeholders. And a deal is the highest ownership of an action you can have, because you come with really concrete actions, with tailor-made targets with your deal. So as a citizen of participation, what Mannheim really is, a deal is a really special thing, because that makes you as an owner of your own deal, of your idea and your action. And it makes your contribution really visible and relevant for the whole process. So that's the idea of a local Green Deal. And so Diana Pretzell also announced it, that we started really many years ago with climate action. That is really clear, as Kuala Lumpur also did. So we started with a mission statement to define a strategic goal with climate neutrality by 2050. But the climate urgency movement shows us really clear in the last IPCC report that we have to be more faster to design climate neutrality in our city. So we made the urgent plan, and then we decided with the city council, based on the local Green Deal idea, that we want to accelerate our ambition into direction 2030. And that is really ambitious for an industrial city as Mannheim is. And so with the local Green Deal, we concretize the mission statement, we concretize how to reach the climate neutrality goal, and at the moment developing a climate action plan 2030 will combine our climate adaptation plan we have already designed in 2019 with concrete climate action, but it is not only on energy, on carbon reduction reducing, it's also about land using, about unsealing areas, it's about mobility and so on. So it's a little bit more, a greater picture than a climate action plan. And so we connect is with a mission 100 climate neutral and smart cities by 2030. It's a really important point. So over weeks we work together with a local Green Deal governance structure to answer all the questions in this assessment center. And so we were asked how to reach the ambition of 2030. What are the co-benefits of your climate action? Do you really look, when you design a climate action plan, do you really look at the economical benefits or adverse impacts, at the social impacts, adverse or positive impacts, and so on, and environmental impacts? So it was a really, really big assessment. All departments worked together to answer these questions, and we also defined the risks and the barriers and the gaps we have on the way to be climate neutral in 2030. So we cross our fingers that we are under the 100 selected cities. We will know it at the beginning of March, and then we get a tailor-made support from the mission in all the sectors we want to address, so all to fill the gaps, to see at the risks, to see in our investment strategy and so on. So it will help us really much. So please cross the fingers with us together. So we are really, excited about this process. And so that shows how we do it with the local Green Deal. These are the 8 action fields. So we connect all the plans and strategies we have in the city already and look into these action fields. It's not going about only about increasing climate ambition. It's going about clean, affordable and secure energy. It's going about zero pollution targets. So air quality, clean water, clean soil, and so on. Ecosystems and biodiversity, because climate action and climate ambition has always to do with the loss of biodiversity and so on, or with to support that we have the nature and clear nature and biodiversity. And it's going about food. It's going about from farm to fork, fair, healthy food systems, about sustainable and smart mobility, about energy and resource efficient buildings, and also affordable buildings. It's about industry for a clean and circular economy. And you see on the right side in the blue circles, it has a cross dimension. So it goes only aligned with knowledge, research and innovation, because the ambition is so big. Without innovation and research and knowledge transfer, it isn't possible to reach the goal. And we need the just transition mindset in us, because if you have the goal of climate neutrality, it isn't possible, or it isn't. Does that food or mobility will be more expensive for the people? So people has to get the access for mobility, for energy, and so on, and connected with their income. So we have to look really careful what we are doing with our plans. How does it affect the social and the economical issues? And it goes about a mobilization of the urban society. So we have to win all the stakeholders for action. Otherwise, it isn't possible. The city administration cannot do it alone. It isn't possible. So that is the picture, the overall picture of the local Green Deal. And you see people on the picture. So we have to work together in that ideal city mindset. So what we have done, so a little bit exercise work. We have done it also for the 100 CNC Assessment Center. So we took all the 8 action fields you have seen already, and we looked into our strategies of the departments, which plan, which strategy we have run in these special action fields. So all the 8 action fields, we checked if there is also a European law or action plan for that field, or is there a national action plan or national law for that, and what we have on the local level. And so we defined 150 potential deals for these action fields, where we have a look now as a city office for the local Green Deal, if it does, if it goes aligned with the local Green Deal mindset to reach the climate neutrality by 2030 and to reach all the goals in the 8 action fields. So that is a picture how we are doing that. So we investigated the local potential in all our plans, strategies, and so on. We created a platform for co-creation and participation with the local Green Deal that we are doing with the already existing platform, citizen participation platform of the strategic department of our city. Christian Hübel is on the site today with us. And so we have we now built a communication platform to mobilize the stakeholders for the ideal city. And so for that, we need a really good transformation culture. We have built with a mission statement also a broad transformation culture in the cities, departments, and so on. But it's not in us. We have to look really concrete into the barriers and risks, and to overcome the silo thinking more and more. And so with every decision in our departments and with every small deal with the or bigger deals with the companies and the citizens, we go a step further into a local Green Deal for the city of Mannheim. So you see here on the right side a picture from the city of Mannheim, River Neckar, with a television tower. That's the normal picture. And you see below a picture with a high mountain, but there are no mountains in Mannheim. So with your mission, We Move Mountains is the slogan for our climate action plan to mobilize the citizens to work with us to make the vision clear, not the vision that we have mountains in Mannheim, but with the people we can move mountains. So it is a picture to create great ideas, moving mountains into Mannheim with a local Green Deal.
Miss Schoenfelder, you have 1 minute. Sorry
Okay,
for
1
interruption.
minute. No problem. Okay. I can show you now some local Green Deals. So with a climate action plan, we have decided to be climate neutral 2030. We joined the 100 climate neutral cities, and we will phase out with a coal-fired power plant by 2030, a real big step for decarbonization. And we built PV panels for municipal buildings to supply all the buildings with solar energy. And so we have the National Garden Show to create the green corridor northeast. We have the forestation program for the climate stable forest. And the last slide, here are the deal makers, the Climate Action Agency. With the Climate Action Agency, we have a lot of incentive programs, supporting programs for refurbishment, greening, and so on, to working with the people on the subject for a local Green Deal. So thanks a lot. Sorry for being too long.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us this interesting project in Mannheim. Of course, especially when you talk about involving the citizens, it's how you're involving the actually communities, as well as creating a platform for co-creating. Actually, this is really interesting topic that we can further discuss in the Q&A session. So I would like to move to the next speaker, Ms. Hajah Rotina Muhammad Daik, Director General at National Landscape Department of Malaysia. And she's currently the Director of National Landscape Department in Malaysia, and she has progressively advocating holistic and well-planned urban landscape developments aimed to heighten the physical quality and community well-being. Ms. Daik, the floor is yours, please.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all participants who are joining us visually today. Thank you, Dr. Parisa Kloss, moderator of the session. Fellow speakers, I would like to extend my gratitude to the organizer, Urbanist Malaysia and City of Mannheim, UTC, for the invitation for me to be with all of you today in this year Urban Thinker Campus session. I'm truly honored to be here and hope to share how National Landscape Department strategize landscape architecture approach and execute our programs toward climate change, climate impact adaptations and sustainability in Malaysia, including the cities of Kuala Lumpur. Since a year 2000, Malaysia is aiming to achieve sustainable urban development, and many efforts are carried out by various authorities at the federal, state, and local level, such as introducing the concept of healthy cities, livable cities, green cities, and many other concepts in planning and development of towns and cities in the country. And climate change is affecting our home, our living environment, and the way we live today. It is critical for us to share and prepare ourselves for the changes that we are expecting. In this session, I would like to deliberate a little bit about National Landscape Department's function as a federal agency, which is responsible to spearhead landscape development in Malaysia in terms of planning, landscape planning, physical landscape development, as well as to spearhead the landscape industry, paving our way towards transforming the country into becoming a garden nation. Upon the establishment, the department has progressed through various development program and initiative with objective to better improve the well-being of our people, the quality of life as well as the environment. Along the way, we develop public parks, revitalize urban scape with comprehensive green components. But what is important and most important is we also make sure to preserve and conserve our natural landscape heritage as an important ecology features here in the country. As a planning tools and guideline, we also formulate the national landscape policy, which outline the trust, strategy, and action plan together with the main principles and directions toward quality, holistic, and sustainable landscape development through the preservations of green area and protections of natural landscape resources. We believe that it is important to have a clear policy guidelines in order to spearhead the directions of the industry in the country, supported by strong planning and execution document such as a landscape master plan, regulations, and also written principles. Through this document in particular, we strategize and emphasize on the provisions of green spaces for future development, which indicate and demarcate the green infrastructure component within the city fabric. A comprehensive landscape planning is advocated where cities can optimize spaces for people to live in comfort and safe. For instance, incorporating elements of walkability, micro-mobility, cycling, disaster mitigation and management. Ladies and gentlemen, Malaysia is actually experiencing similar hot and humid temperature, with most of the cities ranges from 29 degrees Celsius to 33 degrees Celsius throughout the year. The consequence from urban heat island is undoubtedly critical, especially in the large urbanized region, resulting in the unpleasant climate condition. Aware about the worsened congestions and deteriorating environment in most densely populated area, National Landscape Department come up with a few strategies to address the environment and climate issues in the urban area particularly. The Urban Landscape Development Program was introduced as a comprehensive, large-scale greening the cities program, which was adopted utilizing the landscape master plan that have been drafted earlier. And in this particular matter, several specific action plans has been set up to carry out the task of providing conducive and high-quality urban green infrastructure. One is through integrating public spaces and recreational facilities towards seamless interconnected green spaces within the city area. And secondly, taking into account the nature-based solution with aim to intensify urban solution using a landscape architecture and nature-based approach through the scale of the cities. New approaches for every purpose of urban landscape development shall not only be accessible and attractive green network, but also it promotes habitat and ecosystem revitalization, apart from incorporating technologies and education oriented in the design element. The creation and the inventions of Malaysia green spaces are projected to integrate aesthetic, health, and recreational value for the society, where it is fundamental to create sense of place and the feeling of belonging, simultaneously making landscape development as one of the primary infrastructure in the city. We also advocate vertical and sky-rise greeneries to be implemented widely in the densely populated area. To date, Malaysia Public Parks covers about 23,000 of land area in the cities, 23,000 acres. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the Our second strategy is to develop large-scale parks in the city. I'm sure everyone is aware of parks are among the first and the best line of defense against climate change. We make sure that to prioritize the planning and developments of parks in the city, as parks are proven to be able to provide thermal comfort, improve and modify the wind circulation, better regulate participation pattern, and most importantly, park sequential carbons and other pollutants. However, what most important while we adopt this second strategy is to ensure the scale of the park that we are developing. Landscape studies and research shows that large-scale parks with area of more than 10 hectares have the higher tendencies to result temperature reductions that extend covers about 350 meters distant from the park boundary. Hence, we encourage the developments of nature urban parks meet this accurate requirement to fulfill the objective. Large-scale parks means that we can accommodate more trees and vegetation for shading and urban cooling effect, as trees can reduce our local temperature of 3 to 4 degrees Celsius. With reference to that, we also have the policy of a minimum ratio of 70% of having more greeneries compared to the hardscape in the urban park. In this approach, we encourage the use of a diverse and appropriate choice of endemic forests and native trees and vegetation to ensure efficiency of urban cooling effect, and at the same time highlight the significant features of our own Malaysian tropical forest species. There are events of adopting urban forest strategy in park design where the intention are not limited to improving the quality of urban environment, but due to the rising challenges in maintenance of urban parks. We hope the concept of providing the city with more natural, lower maintenance and less tailored and self-sustained vegetation with the characteristic of forest is more accepted. The concept is actually growing gradually. They assimilate well with Malaysia 3 tiers forest planting technique, and it shows a profound effect on our environment. In some cases, large-scale park design are integrated to become a botanical garden, botanical park, arboretum, and urban forest park, as they simultaneously can also act as a recreational, a research and educational venue for our cities, especially in Kuala Lumpur. These efforts are consistent with bringing back nature to the cities approach and the nature-based solutions that we emphasize in our national landscape strategies toward achieving low carbon city initiative 2050 as pledged by the government. Ladies and gentlemen, as a way forward, a clean environment would render a good health and well-being of the citizens and enhance livability of the cities. I believe we are able to pave our way to make our environment sustainable. We can plan and design our cities in the future. I think how we plan and design our cities in the future have much to do with how we understand the nature and and the imprints that can live upon us. Despite many challenges, we will continue to ensure high quality landscape and the public spaces while greening the cities and ensuring the provisions of sufficient green spaces can be materialized in the near future to meet the existing and the future generation needs. We envision landscape and other green infrastructure can be strengthened and contributes toward people-oriented and climate-resilient solutions. Apart from that, we also hope all areas for urban parks, public spaces and the green infrastructure that has been designed for in the cities are managed and monitored accordingly to their designated purpose. I think from me, I'm very delighted to share our experience with all the participants today, and that is how I think we in National Landscape Department contribute to the strategies that help to mitigate the urban heat island effect in the cities. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing with us a landscape actually landscape solution and nature-based solution in Malaysia. And by that, I would like to move to the next speaker, who is also landscape expert, Mr. Didier Vancutsem, Vice President and International Federation of Landscape Architects Europe. And he's also have lots of experience in urban and regional planning, landscape architecture and planning, infrastructure, environmental management, and integrated strategies. Didier, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Parisa. Do you hear me? And do you see also my presentation?
Yes, yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation to contribute to this discussion, and congratulations also for this amazing Urban Thinker campus. I would like also to congratulate the city of Mannheim for the ideal climate approach. I think it's very good to have and to change the mindset of the people, that they understand. So this co-creation process is a great idea. So as Parisa was mentioned, so I'm also going to talk about urban landscapes and bring another example from the south of Germany, and also explain a little bit how cities can adapt to this climate impacts and climate change, right? But first of all, some key aspects, right, related to cities and how they have to adapt and how they have to change their behavior to climate change. First of all, we can see that the climate change impacts are increasing in the last years, and they are increasing very fast. And the landscape thinking approach and the action, as we could see also in Kuala Lumpur just before, and in Mannheim, is key. So, and this is maybe one of the best approach when we are talking about climate adaptation and to face the transformations of our planet. So the landscape paradigm in that sense here for an integrative actions towards climate resilience and co-creation participation is maybe one of the best solutions when we are talking about. And another point is that we urgently need to update our planning instruments and planning documents and building laws. If we see that cities and national states are still using building laws from the last century, we think that there is a problem there. We need to change, and we need to adapt also the laws and the documents, and not only think about activating people, but also give the right framework and to have the current or adapted or future-oriented planning documents. And all these documents should maybe also include these impact assessment tools we are already talking about, and include them in the procedures. And what I was talking about, the dramatic changes we are experiencing in the last years, and this is becoming more and more. For example, forest fires in around Berlin, every year we have the case, or trees dying also in Munich, or one of the biggest catastrophe we could experience last year in the Ahrtal, in the Ahr Valley. It's, by the way, not so far away from Mannheim. If you look at the on the right, we can see also simulation. So for the city of Munich, what has been before, so till the year 2000, and what are the simulation for the year 2041 till 2071. And we see a dramatic increase of heat in the city, and in the urban structure, which is really dramatic, and this is the reason why we see people, young people here, climate justice now, young people from in Munich, by the way, Climate for Future, so the Friday for Future demonstration, demonstrating exactly for having having this adaptation and taking everything under control. So mapping the impacts is quite easy, but how can we react and how can we adapt, right, to these climate change challenges? We have a lot of a big catalog of solutions. We have the related to city planning. We know exactly how we can develop and change our urban systems. We know how to change the layout. We can also increase the vegetative cover, and we can also improve and implement the nature-based solutions. So nature-based solutions is most probably one of the best solutions when we are talking about climate adaptation. One of the best example, and everybody knows, is the cloud-burst management plan in Copenhagen, where we can see that the public space and green spaces have been transformed and have been adapted to accept also all the flats. If you have flash flood in urban structure, so all these places and public spaces can absorb and manage and control the floods and control the and have this retention function of the water. So this is already in place and it is working very well. It has been implemented within 5 years, so quite impressive action towards climate adaptation. When we are talking about good practices, and here I can focus more on Munich and the greater Munich, we have since the 60s on the left the regional plan. So when we are talking about climate adaptation, we have to think also on the regional level, not only on the local level. And so here this regional plan, updated version 2017, is simply including all green corridors. So climate corridors within the city and within the region. And you can see on the right how the climate corridors are working. They are really like a pump station. So pumping cold water or cold air to the city center from the mountains. We have mountains in Munich, and also bringing the cold air into the city center and cooling down also the city. But all these climate corridors or green corridors are, of course, are in danger because of the current need of new housing in the city and in the region. So one of the decision on the regional level was to simply have these corridors as a taboo zones. So no way to build in these corridors. And the corridors, you can find the corridors in the city center. Until the city center, you see here, we are in the center of Munich, and we have big open spaces where the people can relax, and we have a difference of temperature here between 5 and 6 degrees from the hot islands in the city center. So quite impressive, and also very important for the urban climate. Other good practices. One of the recent one last year, for example, we are in the city center of Munich, and it was a derelict railway depot, so it has been transformed into a public park. So simply keeping the nature as it is and making this area available to everyone. So in that sense, it's simply not rebuilding, but keeping the structure and making this as a recreation area for everyone. This is maybe one of the best examples we can see. And it has been one of the prize of the BDLA Landscape Architecture Prize in Germany. Another one, good practice in the greater Munich, this is a bit in the city of Augsburg, where simply American barracks were transformed into a living center, so a new urban district, but also including a lot of green. And here again, you see the same principle, keeping and building a green corridor as a climate corridor into this new urban extension. So you have to be aware that climate corridors are so excellent, and especially for the people, but also for the well-being of the rest of the city. So reconnecting with nature in cities, this is a little bit some takeaways from my short presentation here to achieve this climate resilience. Is maybe what I'm mentioning before is simplifying the planning systems. No silo thinking, as mentioned before. So breaking the silos is maybe one of an important task. And all these planning systems should be reconsidered, including the natural and the climate elements. And maybe this can be done on the local level. So having the federal building law, but also adapting and including the natural and climate dimension in the law as quite important, but also including the circular economy principles as one of the basic system or basic message of the city as a process. So the city is in a process, right? And well, of course, the landscape planning principles, this is done. I mean, we know very well in Germany, this is a mandatory. If you are doing a urban planning development or a city plan, you have to include the landscape. You need to have a landscape plan. And all these landscape plans are including also or proposing nature-based solutions, and this should be included and should be mentioned in every document. Nature-based solutions, I mentioned it, but also talking about urban ecosystem services. So not only the ecosystem services we can find outside the cities, but also talking about the urban ecosystem. So what is the added value of having nature in the city? Yeah. And finally, the last point is also the climate impact assessment models. This should be somehow also included in the principles or in the law we should reconsider. So in that sense, this is my short presentation, and happy to discuss and to focus especially on this climate resilience proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Didier, for your great presentation. And yeah, I'm finishing in on time. Thank you.
Yes.
So we have now around 15 minutes. I will open the platform for more discussion and also Q&A session. If somebody has a question, you can also drop it in the chat box. But I would like to start with one question. We have heard a lot during this lab and also previous labs that nature-based solution is one of the good solutions to tackle climate change issues. But yeah, in Malaysia case or in Mannheim case, because of the heavy rain, we can do that. But how about the cities that are struggling with the lack of water? Do you have any solution or suggestion in this regard? I'm asking from all the speakers who wants to answer my question.
Parisa, you are talking about hot cities, right? And how the hot cities can especially manage and develop their own nature-based solutions. Yes. I mean, if you look at the Middle East cities, Dubai or Abu Dhabi, or so they have their own nature-based solution systems, and they know exactly how they can develop their cooling system, right? Capturing air flows from during the night, right? And trying to keep also the cool air in the cities during the day. There are a lot of, and especially the green coverage is essential in that sense. Maybe somebody else has an idea. And yes, I was mentioning also, and it has been mentioned before during the first lab, is reducing also hard coverage. I think Mannheim was mentioning the green facades, right? This is one solution, the green facades, but also reducing asphalt, reducing hard coverage, because this hard coverage, this is a dead for the city. It brings an additional 5 degrees temperature, right? And if you are covering your surfaces with tarmac or asphalt, right? And this has to be it has to be done as soon as possible, right? I mean, this is so easy to do it without building up this big infrastructure, right? Just
Yes.
you can take another system, and it's easy. Sorry.
Yes, that's correct. If we have, I mean, one of the really low budget solution is just painting the asphalt with the really white colors, and they can easily reflect the sun, and they are not absorbing it. So this is also really low budget solution, and using the high albedo materials for the facades of the building. Actually, I'm talking about, for example, I had the experience in Cairo. In Cairo, maybe Heba is also in the group. We had experience of integrating the greenery is also one of the challenge there, because they are struggling with the lack of water. So this can be also, I don't know, solved with a kind of technology, but how you can do it in a really unplanned area. This is also one of the difficulties there. Of course, we can come up with the other solutions, like using the shading systems or using the as I said, high albedo materials, or different solutions to tackle the issue. Yeah, thank you so much, Didier, for your answer. And any other speakers would like to add on that?
Maybe just to complement?
Yes, please.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Me?
Who would go first? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Pablo Gander. I'm coordinating an EU program called IURC, City-to-City Cooperation, working with Malaysia since quite some years, with Professor Ho, and also with Mannheim. So great to see here good old friends. And with regard to the nature-based solution and some very special solutions for let's say hot cities, we had a webinar back in November with other cities, including Seoul, and Seoul was showcasing a very big roof garden program. So with a very I think interesting measures, and what I can do, I mean, it will go maybe way too far now for the discussion, but the roof gardens, generally speaking, working on that, and that has been implemented in Seoul, but also in Penang, for example, and in Malaysia, and therefore, yeah, I will just write the link here in the chat, and then you can access also that information, and of course stay in touch with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
May I say something?
Yes, Professor.
Yeah, I think this so-called working with nature, but in Malaysia, of course, I think we started much earlier on RID, low impact development. Of course, I think you mentioned our situation is too much water. Rainfall is very heavy, and a lot of surface runoff, and we are trying to promote more greening, bioretention pond, and all those. So working with nature is not new, but I think how do we incorporate in the design the infrastructure planning? And I particularly like the presentation by the last speaker. It's very interesting that using corridors, green corridors connecting between this green area. I think this is something that this kind of nature solutions cannot be do in the isolation in silo. It should be, I think, planned in a very integrated manner. I think that part is something that cities should able to make full use of it. I think so. That's why I think city collaboration between those cities who have good experience on this kind of thing, probably they can share with us in terms of maybe the guidelines or how to incorporate it in the bylaws or in terms of design guide, so that our landscape architect or planners or architect can really look into it and see how that can be incorporated in our local condition. So to localize that kind of guideline into our local context are important. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think, Azmi, you want to add something?
Yeah, thank you, Parisa. I mean, when we talk about lack of water, I mean, ultimately we have to talk about the water side of things, right? How do we plan living with, for example, in Malaysia, excess of water during rainy seasons, like we had a really big flood last December, and also we have to be ready for the dry years. So under the water sector transformation, we're looking into all these innovative strategies and long-term planning until 2040. Aside from that, we've been looking into harvesting rainwater, and of course, incorporating integrated water resource management, and more importantly, at city level or even at regional level, we have to take care of the water catchment areas. So, if we don't know how to manage water, we cannot deal with all this, threats and disasters. I think, at city level, we have not, I'm not sure whether we have started this conversation at city level, but dealing with climate change impacts like dry spells, flood, and also the sea level rise is something that's all water related, right? Sea level rise will also increase the salinity of our water supply. So in Malaysia, we've started that, the water sector transformation. And perhaps after this, for our National Adaptation Plan, as mentioned by Dr. Sugumari, we can start a deep diving into how we're going to approach cities for this. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for adding to that. If anybody else want to add to that, or we are going to the next question. Okay, it seems there's nobody. Any other questions from the floor?
Parisa,
one question.
Okay. Go
So,
ahead.
okay, I got a question. Okay, Malaysia, we are very fortunate that we got a river that only passes through one state. But in Europe, 2,900 kilometers of river that passes 10 countries. How do you handle those, especially in climate change? And where is, I don't know whether Mannheim is part of the 2,900 kilometers of river, right? And you may be good in controlling it at Mannheim, but where it's an upstream that comes in, how does that happen? Is there any way that we can actually look at it as a total global or total European picture, or maybe in ASEAN also we can learn from Europe? Because I think not just about sea water rise, maybe river water rise also is very, very crucial, especially when my friend in Holland, they are at keeping Virgil, especially in Maastricht, when the water from Germany was coming down. So they were all waiting that no people were to stay by the riverine. So any answers or any solution for that? Thank you very much, Mustafa from Malaysia.
Didier, do you want to reply that, or we are going to Mannheim?
I can't go to Mannheim, but I can explain you how the Netherlands is dealing with this floods, right? Because it's a quite dangerous situation at the moment, and you know that 1/3 of the country is under sea level. So they have to deal and they have to do. So what they are doing is simply including, so they do the provision to 2070 or 2080 and calculating how much water has to be retained. So they are building already now the dikes and doing so prevention work in building also capture lakes. So kind of surfaces where the water is going to be stored in the next decades, right? And how they will be able, and simply they will have to accept that they will have to live with water. They are living already since centuries with water, but then they are going to live on water, right? In the water. So the new habitats they are designing now are the habitats also including water. So they have everywhere water. Yeah, I don't know what's I don't know. I'm not sure about Mannheim. So somebody can answer the question.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Christian, I think.
Yeah,
Christian, maybe you can add something?
I try to answer. I mean, we have polters and dams across the state lines between North Rhine-Westphalia, Baden-Württemberg, and also Hesse. But we see at the moment we have conflicting goals, because here in Mannheim we have to cut down a lot of trees to build a new dam. And this is a very conflicting situation, because the people don't understanding it. On the one hand, they're saying, hey, you're planting tree. On the other hand, you are cutting trees. And we have to say, okay, but what's the solution for the big floods in the future? And so we have to build dams. And this is at the moment, a goal conflict.
Thank you, Christian, for adding that.
Maybe I can add some sentences
Yeah,
from
please.
the Mannheim side. Yeah. So in Mannheim, it's still, cross the fingers, not the flood of the river flood is a problem. It's more about heavy rain events. And so we managed it with a regional and a local heavy rain mapping at the moment, in which urban quarters is a high risk for heavy rain. So the cellars are going full with water. That is a problem. And for the shipping industry and the companies alongside the River Rhine and the Neckar, it's also a problem if there is too much water or less water in the Rhine. So that is the problem more, not the flood at the moment, but we are building or reconstructing our dike, our dam. So that's another problem what Christian mentioned.
Thank you so much. I can see, Azni, your hand is, you raise a hand. Do you have any question?
Yeah, I have a question, a quick one.
Yeah,
I'm
please.
intrigued with the, Didier's presentation just now when he mentioned about climate impact assessment. Right now we're doing, vulnerability assessment. Is this similar or is it something different?
I'm not aware about the vulnerability assessment, but climate impact assessment is simply that you are evaluating all the climate hazards. So everything you can imagine, that was the image I showed before. So from floods till hot islands, etc. And then you simply calculate where are the risks, right? And what has to be done if you know that you are going to have in the next 20 years an increase of 5 degrees of the temperature in the city center. So this is maybe the same.
Perhaps. Are you doing this for city level in particular, or is it like a whole
City
country?
level. City level, and you can do it also on regional level.
Okay, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
you're
Yeah.
welcome.
Thank you so much. Next question. We can take one more questions and then we will close this lab and going to the next lab. Any other thoughts, ideas, comments, questions? Yeah, please, Professor.
I have a quick comment just now about the climate impact assessment. Actually, GCOM, Mr. Pablo is here. So, GCOM actually, when they do any climate action plan, there are two aspects to cover. One is mitigation, and the other one is on adaptation. The adaptation part, actually, the CRVA, Climate Risk Vulnerability Assessment. So I think that part probably is the closest to so-called climate impact assessment, I think. So at city level, it's quite common when a city is preparing their climate action plan, CRVA is one of the compulsory exercise that has to be done. Yeah. So I believe I think most of the EU are quite familiar with this system, because we are now using global covenants of mayors format. So CRVA is part of the exercise that have to be done as part of the climate action plan.
Prof,
So,
Azini here, I would like to ask you a
yes.
bit on that. Is KL doing anything on the CRVA?
One more time.
Is KL doing anything regarding this, climate vulnerability assessment?
KL actually under KL CAP CAP, they do carry out this CRVA in format. Probably I'm not sure whether they call CRVA or not, but they do have the risk analysis and vulnerability study. So I can assume that C40 when they do the
that
CAP,
one. Okay.
Yeah. That's right. I think but whether the format is similar with the GCOM format, I'm not too sure. But I think it should be quite similar in terms of the coverage.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I will close this session. We have a time to also move to the next Urban Lab. I would like to thank all our speakers for their thoughts and initiatives that they share with us. It was great to see that Kuala Lumpur, or in whole Malaysia and also in Mannheim, also Didier shared with us Munich, that there are using lots of solutions to tackle the climate issues in their cities. Especially a nature-based solution is one of the good solutions, especially for these cities that they don't have a problem of the water. I would like to also thank all the participants. Thank you so much, and don't forget to join us in the next lab, Urban Lab 3, that we are going to discuss the way towards enabling climate action plans and share with you the ideas. See you there. Thank you so much.